welcome to the Politricks Watch. This is Sir P. Now, today I'm going to be responding to article I see in the papers, the Jamaica Observer to be exact. And they were talking to, or they were mentioning some comments made by the executive director of Stand Up for Jamaica. That is one of the many human rights groups in Jamaica. As you know, they have like Jamaican for Justice and these organizations. So Stand Up for Jamaica is one of them. The lady who was speaking, her name is Carla. I don't know if this is Gulata or Golata, right? But from what I understand, she's originally from Italy, and then she dropped to Jamaica and fell in love with the country. So now she's leading one of the country's human rights groups, one of the biggest from what I understand. So now let's move into what the head of Stand Up for Jamaica has to say. She mentioned that she was against the death penalty. That comes as no surprise to me, because once I hear human rights groups, you know say they're going to be against the death penalty. But she mentioned a particular point, because you see, when you just state I'm against the death penalty, I can't say nothing to you. That's your opinion. But when you start to present an argument that sounds like it's rooted in any kind of data or research, then now you open yourself up for a rebuttal. So before I give a response, I want to drop the disclaimer. As you can see, Ms. Carla Golata is the executive director of Stand Up for Jamaica. The last time I checked, the executive director of a human rights group is much bigger than a local YouTuber. So people love to remind me that I am no quote-unquote expert, and I agree, I am no expert at all. I barely go to school, can barely read and write. Right. I am just adding my 2 cents to the argument. So I kneel in sackcloth and ashes and apologize to Jamaica's academic community. Clearly, I am not worthy to stand in your presence, so this is just a little YouTuber attempting to offer him 2 cents to something I'm say in the media. So please do not smite me with thy superior education and intellect. Now, I can move into what Miss Carla said. She mentioned the United States and Canada. What was she saying about the United States and Canada? Well, I quote, "Every few years, somebody is waving for the death penalty as a solution, which over the years we have seen is not. There are countries like America where the death penalty is used and their crime is still very high. There are countries like Canada where the death penalty has been abolished, where the violence is not even a third compared to the United States." Golata reason, and again I don't know if it's Gulata or Golata. Right. So that is what she had to say. She compared the United States and Canada. Her argument is Canada murder rate is lower than America, and it doesn't have death penalty. Therefore, that shows you say the death penalty doesn't work. Here is the problem with that argument. It is very easy to debunk using Miss Carla's own logic. I'm going to tell you why. I want you to look at your screen right now. The homicide rate for Canada hover around 2 per 100,000. That's quite low, especially compared to countries like Jamaica. Now she mentioned the United States, which is usually around 5.5 per 100,000. That is hardly very high. And the United States, when you look on it as a whole country, it can be misleading because state by state things get different. Every state basically act like its own mini country, and some states have higher murder rate, but for the sake of argument, we're just going to use the whole United States. It's usually about 5.5 per 100,000. Not very high, as she say. Right? And again, it's not every state even allow capital punishment. But I digress. We're going to just work with what she say. Whole of America versus whole of Canada. 2 per 100,000 versus 5.5, 6 per 100,000. According to her argument, just using those 2 countries, there's nothing here to see. Canada have a lower murder rate with no death penalty. America have death penalty and is higher than Canada. So let's look at the countries in the world with the lowest murder rate. It's there on your screen. So what I will do now is apply the executive director's logic to these countries. Remember, according to her, the fact that Canada has a lower murder rate than the United States shows that the death penalty no really lower the murder and has no effect on the murder rate. Now we're not even going to talk about causal effect and say this cause this and that cause that. We're strictly using the executive director's logic. So you see 10 countries on your screen. These countries' murder rate make even Canada murder rate look high because them so low. You see, Canada make America look high, but these 10 countries make Canada murder rate look high. So by her logic, these countries should not have the death penalty. Let's start with number 1. Now I went through the trouble of researching every single country in the top 10 and see if they not only have the death penalty but use it. Those are the 2 criteria I look for. Right. Them have it and them use it. The reason why I need the 2 of them is because Jamaica have it but Jamaica no use it. So you need to have it and use it. Number 1 on the list, Japan. Lowest murder rate in the world. Does Japan have a death penalty? Yes, absolutely. Not only do they have the death penalty, but them use it frequently, as you can see on your screen. Japan, the country that is known for being so peaceful, right, have a reputation for, very low murder rate, even though it's the home of the monstrous Yakuza. They very rarely use violence. Death penalty exists in Japan. That immediately, Japan alone immediately destroys the executive director's entire argument. Because if you're saying Canada having a lower murder rate than America shows that the death penalty don't work. Now according to the director's logic, this then reverse everything because Japan have a much lower murder rate than Canada with a death penalty. So the fact that Japan have a lower murder rate than Canada, wouldn't this flip things over again? And now people should be for the death penalty because see there, clearly it worked according to her logic. Remember, we're just looking at what she said. But maybe a buck-ups. Second on the list, and tie with Singapore, them 2 countries are always at the very bottom of murder rate. Singapore, 0.2 as well. Very, very low. Does Singapore have and use the death penalty? Yes, frequently. As a matter of fact, them use it for all things like Diet Coke. If Singapore catch you with Diet Coke, well, let's just say you're going to have a very bad day. So that's 2 countries already. So the next country on the list is Hong Kong. I'm going to skip it because Hong Kong is now a part of China. And China is slowly bringing Hong Kong laws in line with the mainland. Right? Them say at first them like separate it, but now things are starting to get a bit spooky. That's why you see them have big protests and things in Hong Kong. So one time when Hong Kong was a part of Britain, then it would have make sense to separate them. But now that Hong Kong is China, I'm going to skip it. Let's move on to Luxembourg. Does Luxembourg have the death penalty? No. When was it abolished? 1979. In the context of history, it's not that long ago. However, I will give them that. Luxembourg does not currently have a death penalty. What about Indonesia? Right? As you can see, Indonesia have the 5th lowest murder rate in the world, 0.4. You notice all of them are lower than Canada by far. Does Indonesia have the death penalty? Absolutely. Their death penalty is carried out by firing squad. Do you know what a firing squad is? A group of armed personnel, can be soldier, police, whatever, warder, literally put the prisoner in the sights of them weapon and let them start fire until the prisoner is dead. Firing squad. That's what Indonesia have. Indonesia have one of the lowest murder rate in the world, much lower than Canada. Norway. Does Norway have the death penalty? No. It was abolished the same year as Luxembourg, 1979. Again, that's not that long ago. When Norway was being built, when the foundation of the country was being put in place, they did have a death penalty. 1979 is not that long ago, but currently they don't have it. The next country with the lowest murder rate in the world is Oman. Does Oman have the death penalty? Yes, it absolutely does. The next country on the list is Switzerland. Does Switzerland have the death penalty? No. It was abolished completely in 1992. Again, 1992 is not that long ago. When Switzerland was being built, the foundation of the nation, when they were on their way up, they had a death penalty. But currently, they don't have one. So, who is next on the list? UAE. Does the UAE have the death penalty? The answer is yes. Who is next after the UAE? China. Does China have the death penalty? Absolutely. So, out of these countries, you see them in a red and you see them in a blue. These are the 9 countries in the world with the lowest murder rate on average. Sometimes countries fall out and others go in, but on average, these are the countries that are consistently coming out with the lowest murder rate. Them don't count the little place them like Isle of Man and San Marino and them places. So as you can see, the majority of the countries with the lowest murder rate in the world don't just have a death penalty, but them use it regularly. This would back up that the death penalty is effective as a means of deterrent. Using her logic, remember, she said, because Canada don't have it, and America have it, and Canada murder rate is lower than America, then that shows you say it's not effective. And it is not going to deliver on the real results. So now that we say these countries have murder rates much lower than Canada, wouldn't that flip fair argument on its head? Now we have to go say, well, the majority of countries with the lowest murder rate have a death penalty and use it frequently. In the piece in the Observer, she mentioned that we shouldn't use emotions and we should use rationale, where here is rationale. Again, this video isn't even about bring back death penalty, for death penalty, or against death penalty. I'm simply sticking to her reasoning, and by her reasoning, the death penalty is clearly an effective tool at deterring murder. Because as you can see on your screen, you can go do your own research if you want. These countries, Japan, Singapore, UAE, Indonesia, these countries have the death penalty and use it. So what would happen now if we look at the country with the highest murder rate? Sticking to the director's argument same way. Look on your screen. These are the countries that consistently come out in the top 10 for having the highest murder rate in the world. Once again, we're using the same criteria. Does the country not only have the death penalty, but use it? So Jamaica have the death penalty, but don't use it. Therefore, it get marked as a no. So it cannot be judged as a measure for deter crime if it never get used. Second, El Salvador. No. The only way El Salvador can use the death penalty is if it's at war with an external foe. In other words, another nation. They cannot execute El Salvador citizens. Honduras. No. It was abolished in 1956. Venezuela. No. Abolished 1863. One of the first countries in the entire world. Venezuela. Now, just pay attention to the countries we mentioned already now. Jamaica, El Salvador, Honduras, Venezuela. Some of the most murderous countries in the entire world. Not one of them have the death penalty and use it. Who's next? Belize? No. Just like Jamaica, it dep on the books, but they've not carried out an execution since 85. So, it get marked as no. St. Vincent? Not been used since 95. Brazil? Not been used since 1876. 1876. You know Brazil badness already, right? Mexico, it was abolished in 2005. Lesotho, not since 1995. So in other words, there is not a single country with the top 10 highest murder rate where they are currently carrying out executions. And for the countries with the lowest murder rate, 6 out of the 9, the majority have the death penalty. So by the director's own logic that she tried to use comparing Canada to America, this would actually justify using the death penalty as an effective means to reduce murder. Let me say that again. Using her logic, not mine. She was the one that said, since Canada have a lower murder rate than America, and Canada does not have the death penalty, but America does, using that logic, the fact that the majority of the countries with the lowest murder rate, way lower than Canada, have the death penalty and use it frequently, then that is an argument for the death penalty. We can even forget about the top 10 and just look at the top 2. Singapore and Japan have the lowest murder rates in the entire world, and the two countries them have the death penalty and frequently execute people. So, since we're working what the director said, that shows you say there is a very strong argument for using the death penalty as a deterrent, not just against murders, but reducing a high murder rate. Remember, Singapore was not always the country it is today. As you can see on your screen, the Singaporean government frequently posts why them now let go after the death penalty. Because they credit it for the situation they have in terms of reducing their crime rate. They credit their laws and them thing there, right? For getting rid of kidnapping and all kind of murders. It's right there on your screen. So what has happened in trying to use Canada as an example why we should kill off the whole death penalty argument, she's end up making it look even stronger. Because now we can see say, if Japan and Singapore murder rate is way lower than Canada and them frequently execute for them criminals, by the director's logic, the method them might use is better than what they might use in Canada. Because Canada don't have freedom results. Of course, we don't say there are many factors that go into crime, but as she bring up this line of reasoning, once again I want to remind the public that I accept I'm just a local YouTuber. I know the very educated crowd that tunes in frequently get really upset when a scoundrel of a YouTuber would even dare to question anybody, right, with a big title or come from the academic world. Right. But I'm just giving my 2 cents. Anyway, Patreon squad, big up on yourself. Yeah, you don't know, no life. Ultra squad, stay circling. Bless.